everybody, welcome back. My name is Mel and today we're going to be talking about subscription boxes. So there are so many subscription boxes out right now. Sometimes it can be really hard to figure out which ones you want to be on the wait list for. When the wait list finally comes through, do you want to subscribe? Or are you already kind of getting everything you need out of some of your other subscription boxes? So I figured I would go through the 4 subscription boxes that I have been subscribed to in the past or am currently, tell you what I liked about them, what I didn't, the cost, different things. So hopefully you will be able to figure out if you want to subscribe to these as well. I will say that I'm only going to be able to review 4 and they are book only boxes. So I'm going to be rating these or ranking these in a matter of cost, quality, book selection, and design of the book. The difference between quality and the design of the book is just going to be more how is the book made versus is the design of the book good. So the first one that I want to talk about is Illumicrate. For me, and including shipping, because it is coming from the UK, shipping is quite high to the US, it is $40.44. So automatically this one is getting a low rating on the cost scale. It is very expensive. I understand why it's expensive because it is being shipped overseas, but that is a lot of money to fish out for a US person on a UK box. So including the fact that it is coming from overseas, I would give this one a C as far as price. So then let's look at the book selection. Illumicrate picks a pretty decent mix of YA and adult reads. It is all science fiction fantasy, so if you're not a science fiction fantasy reader, this might not be the subscription box for you. I do find that they tend to lean more toward the YA or borderline YA titles than they do the solidly adult high fantasy reads, but every once in a while we will get a high fantasy pick. So I would say for me it's a B+. I personally do like a more adult subscription box, but I go into Illumicrate knowing that they do tend to pick more YA books. I will say that one thing about Illumicrate that I'm not going to necessarily be able to review in every single box is that skipping boxes is super easy with Illumicrate. You just go into your account, hit skip month, and they just roll you over to the next month. So you don't have a limit right now on your number of skips. If you want to, you can usually find spoilers for what the book is ahead of time. So I personally really appreciate that about Illumicrate, that it is so easy for me to skip books I'm not interested in while keeping my subscription active. So next, let's talk about design of the books. Personally, I think Illumicrate has some really cool designs. If you are somebody that is looking for a special edition, you want a book box that is going to really give you something unique in your books and not just give you an inverted cover or a block sprayed edge, Illumicrate might be for you. So for example, take The Woven Kingdom. This is a beautiful book and it is very different than the original cover art. They also really took their time to give you nice stenciled edges that have a design that is unique to the book. They also went ahead and did full end papers rather than just giving you standard end papers. And if I'm not mistaken, every Illumicrate book is signed. So as far as design, it's got a really great design. One of my other personal favorites is one that I think that they kind of went all out on, and that was Empire of the Vampire by J. Kristoff. This is a gorgeous book. The spine is beautiful. This is a just inverted cover, but a lot of the charm that comes from these stenciled edges that are absolutely gorgeous. It has relatively standard end papers, but they are still a design. And then the actual hardcover of this book is absolutely gorgeous with its foiling. It has a quote on it, the design on the front. So this is one of those copies that personally I wouldn't want to read. It's so pretty, but this actually came in the standard subscription box. It was not its own special edition. So as far as design goes for Illumicrate, I would probably give them an A. I feel like they do really well on unique designs that for the most part people will enjoy across the board. I don't think I've necessarily gotten an ugly Illumicrate book, even though there are things about designs that I personally like better and some other people might not like as much. I do find that Illumicrate has a pretty standard good design. Now, as far as quality, for the most part, I find that Illumicrate has really good quality. The binding is always nice and solid. I don't typically get books ripped or damaged in any way. I will say that this particular naked hardcover does have a little bit of loose binding. I don't think you're going to be able to see that on camera. And unfortunately, the sprayed edges on this one aren't fully, I don't know if that's going to focus, aren't fully blocked on the sides. It's kind of like it must have missed, or it's just not sealing together right, which is not the case I have in some of my other sprayed block edges. So that's contingent on this book. So I think I would give quality a B or a B plus. I do think they have really good quality, but there are times when they could step it up just a notch. Next up, let's just go into the FairyLoot adult box, because I do have a book from both boxes that I want to show you guys so that you can kind of compare the designs and differences between the two boxes. FairyLoot actually has a US warehouse, so shipping is much nicer, even though they are a UK based company. And the cost for me, including shipping, was $34.90. As far as the book selection goes, this was the thing that I did not love as much about FairyLoot, and I have actually canceled my subscription with them since getting the books for this video. I found that they said they were adult, but 90% of the time they were picking books that to me were kind of borderlining YA and adult and not fully leaning into that adult stamp. For example, they chose City of Dusk, which I know some people are classifying as adult, but for me, it was kind of middle of the road at best. I didn't think that it was a solidly adult book, and I'm finding that that tends to be the case with a lot of their choices. They're also picking very safe choices, things that are extremely popular, and they know people are going to want special editions of, which is fine. That's a great marketing strategy, but if you're looking for special editions of things that maybe you've never heard of before, Illumicrate, FairyLoot, probably not going to be the box for you. So personally, I would give them a C+, just because they have the young adult FairyLoot and they're picking books that could easily go in that sometimes. That's frustrating for me. I don't want to have two separate boxes and I'm choosing to subscribe to the adult if you're not going to lean into that adult stamp. So for me, C+ on book selection. As far as design goes, theirs is not quite as good as Illumicrate as far as differences from the original book. So for example, the Atlas 6, it's a beautiful book, but it is just an inverted color of the UK cover. It's not super special as far as the cover goes, other than the foiling. It is very pretty, don't get me wrong, but I did prefer the Illumicrate special edition that had like the blue, and it was just very different. I do like the stenciled edges on this one. They're plain, but I tend to like a more plain edge. It does have some pretty cool end papers in it. I like that as well. And then there is a little bit of foiling on the naked hardcover, which you don't see in every book. All of theirs are signed as well, so that's something that you can compare to the Illumicrate editions. So one of the other ones that I just wanted to show you guys for reference was Her Majesty's Royal Coven. This particular one, I do like the stenciling, but it is pretty basic. It does not have a full like signature. I don't think this signature is printed, but I'm really not sure, to be honest with you. It does have some pretty cool just like splattered end papers, but where this one particularly shines is in the naked hardcover. As a matter of fact, I don't think I would display it with the actual cover on. I find that this is super creepy and very cool. I like the naked hardcover a lot. The pink was a choice, but it works. I hate the yellow personally, but that's just me. So as far as design goes, I would give FairyLoot Adult probably a B+. They're not bad, but they're not excelling in my opinion. The quality of these books is pretty good. Unlike the Woven Kingdom, my block edges are nice and solid, and you can usually really tell with black if the edges aren't super solid. For the most part, they come very well packaged. I've had one damaged book, but that's bound to happen in transit, especially when it's coming from technically overseas, even though they have a US warehouse. So I think that quality on these is pretty good. I would give it a B+. I think that quality is pretty decent on these. And then I was going to show you the comparison between the two, just because I think that comparison is good for people to see. This was the Illumicrate version of Book of Night, whereas this one was the FairyLoot adult version of Book of Night. The Illumicrate one is obviously just an inverted cover. It has solid black sprayed edges, and then they went with a very, very foiled naked hardcover, and the end papers were pretty basic on this one as well. And then FairyLoot decided to not go with an inverted cover, but go solid black and give us some foiling. It also just has solid black sprayed edges. The end paper on this one is definitely more distinct than on the Illumicrate. And then they went with some foiling on the hardcover and a quote as well. I will say that this is a very matte hardcover. It's not embossed, which I personally kind of like. So if you're looking for design differences between the two companies, maybe that will give you a good comparison. Okay, moving on to my next special edition, and that would be the Goldsboro Science Fiction and Fantasy Fellowship. This one is limited to like 1,000 spots or something, so it is limited edition, whereas Illumicrate and FairyLoot technically are, but not nearly to the extent that Goldsboro is. They are always going to be science fiction or fantasy books. I would say 90% of the time, they are adult with the occasional new adult leaning YA. I've seen that a couple of times in the 6 months or so that I've been subscribed. This one is one of the more expensive ones, unfortunately, because it is also UK based. So for me, it comes out as $37.17 with their recent shipping increase to come over for total cost. So it's pricey, not quite as much as Illumicrate, but it is pricey. As far as the selection and stuff goes, they are picking books that are lesser known, so they don't typically pick books that everybody knows about. Every once in a while, you will see a very popular title. I think in January and February of this year, they did Ashes to Ashes and Justice of Kings, both of which were very popular Orbit titles. I do have one that is a lot more well-known and popular sitting here, but for the most part, they tend to mix it up with things that you've never heard of before, which I appreciate. That means I'm getting something new on my radar every once in a while. And like I said, they are usually adult titles, so I'm giving this a B+. As far as quality goes, I would say that Goldsboro has the best quality in like binding, shipping, etc. that I have seen. It always comes in a super beat up box, but it is wrapped to the nines in bubble wrap and taped down. I don't think water's getting through that sucker. Nobody's banging the crap out of it. It is bubble wrapped, safety strapped in that box. So I really do appreciate the care that Goldsboro takes in packaging their books. They also have a protective film that you can take off. It's not a if I can get this off, it's not a requirement to leave it on. It does come off, but it gives you just an added layer of protection over your books, which I really appreciate. So quality for Goldsboro, I would say just in binding packaging is an A. They do a great job with the quality of their books. As far as design goes, Goldsboro is a little bit more basic in their design. Their covers 90% of the time are the original covers to the books. They don't always have end papers or anything on the naked hardcover. They almost always do sprayed or stenciled edges though, so you will have that as a special edition. But for the most part, they're not as special as the Illumicrate or the FairyLoot are. So for example, we have one from a couple of months ago, Collar Bound. This particular book has the same cover that the original does. It does come in the plastic wrap. The edges are this really pretty gradient edge, which I appreciate, but there are no end papers. There is nothing on the naked hardcover, and these books all do come signed as well. Everything comes signed. Okay, and then just for one more reference, I tried to show you guys two of everything. We have one of the more recent ones, Ordinary Monsters. This one is personally one of my favorites that they've done. I did not realize that it actually came with a leather bookmark, so that is super, super cool. Again, doesn't have any end papers, doesn't have anything on the naked hardcover. But one thing that I really appreciated about this one, super simple, but super like high quality stenciled edges. I don't know if this translates well on camera, but they have a gradient to these feathers that are just so super cool. I absolutely love these stenciled edges, and I think they did a great job with the quality of these editions. Okay, and last but not least, let's talk about the other subscription box that I currently have, and that is Book of the Month. Book of the Month is something people are extremely familiar with. It's not something that I need to go into long detail about. It is US based. I don't think it even ships to other countries, so that kind of stinks. Hopefully they're working on that. So for me, it's a lot cheaper. It's $14.99 a month, including shipping, and you can do $9 add-ons for these hardcovers if you want to. So the cost for this one is super low. I think they are also going to be introducing audiobooks very soon, so if you don't want to get a hardcover, you can get an audiobook instead. But at the $14.99 price tag, that is the same as Audible. So as far as their selection goes, these are for the people that don't really like science fiction and fantasy. They really lean more toward their literary fiction and mystery thrillers. I think Book of the Month is great for that. Their selection does lean pretty heavily on mystery thrillers, but they do try to include some romance and some literary fiction as well. Every once in a while they'll slip in a fantasy, but 90% of the time it's a pretty soft fantasy read. It's not going to be something like high epic Sanderson. It's going to be something more like, I think La Hacienda was one recently, so something Mexican Gothic. So as far as selection goes, I will give them a B+ because I like mystery thrillers, but some of the choices have been a little frustrating recently, just simply because they're not doing repeat authors as much. So if it's a book in a series, you can at least bank on the fact that you're only going to have a 50-50 shot of getting the next book in the series in a Book of the Month edition, which is really frustrating for somebody that likes to have all of my editions match on my shelves. Drives me crazy. If you have like Riley Sager and you have all of his books in hardcover Book of the Month editions, recently they have not been doing as popular of authors as main selections. They'll do them as add-ons. Sometimes the add-ons don't have the marketing. Sometimes they're not doing them as add-ons at all. So I know people have been kind of frustrated with their picks recently. So it just kind of depends on what you're looking for. Full transparency, I have recently canceled my Book of the Month, and part of it was because of picks, part of it was because of design, part of it was just generally not reading them personally because I had way too much on my shelves, and that was a consistent book coming in every single month that I could guarantee I wasn't going to get to for at least 6 months. So as far as quality goes, it's okay. I mean, they are really standard hardcovers. They're well-bound hardcover editions, so I mean, I would give them just a standard B for quality. They're well-bound most of the time. They don't really come damaged. They used to shrink wrap their books, which I personally appreciated in my super high humidity, oftentimes random rain type environment. It was ensuring that my books didn't get damaged. But recently they've stopped doing that, which I don't really like. And so I'm giving them like a C+B because the packaging is not as good anymore. As far as design, there's nothing special about the Book of the Month design other than the fact that you are going to get the Book of the Month symbol in the corner. You are going to get like the standard back with the Book of the Month, again, Book of the Month symbol at the top. There are not going to be any specialized end papers. It is almost always going to have one color spine with one different color actual hardcover on it, and the Book of the Month stamped down here with the month and year that it actually came out as Book of the Month. So they have a lot of marketing on their books, but I wouldn't say that they are necessarily special editions. They are just, I don't know, they're pretty standard, and then they have Book of the Month marketing all over them. So as far as design goes, they're getting like a D because I hate the Book of the Month marketing on every single thing. It drives me crazy. I'm okay with them not having a bunch of special editions, but sometimes I wish that the Book of the Month marketing was a little bit less in your face. So that is all of the subscription boxes that I currently have. If I'm ranking them as ones that I like the best and I think are giving you the most bang for your buck, I think that Goldsboro is probably giving you your most bang for your buck. It's not super special editions, but they are special enough. They are well crafted. They are giving you a lot of different picks, especially for my high fantasy girlies. So personally, even though Goldsboro is really high, I think it's worth the cost. Next, I still have Illumicrate, and a lot of that is because of the skip feature. So I would say probably next on my list would be Illumicrate. but Illumicrate is so very expensive for me in the US. I do find myself being much pickier about which books I let actually go through the cycle of billing, and I'm a lot more picky about which ones that I choose to skip. If the skip feature wasn't there, I probably would cancel Illumicrate. But next then we have going to be FairyLoot Adult. FairyLoot Adult had such a great premise, but they're flopping on their selections, and because of that I have chosen to cancel it. I felt like I wasn't getting what I was promised. I wasn't getting these high epic adult fantasy reads. I was getting new adult, sometimes even what I consider very young adult reads that could have easily gone in their young adult box. And that was a little frustrating since I bought it for the adult picks. But the quality is good, the designs are interesting, so it just kind of depends on what you're looking for as far as a subscription box. And then Book of the Month is going to be for those people that want something popular that they can get at a really cheap price, where they can do lots of add-ons. They have a great rewards program. But if it's something you're looking for a special edition or you want a lot of fantasy picks, Book of the Month is not going to be for you. If we're talking about subscription boxes that I personally don't have but would consider getting, it would definitely be the Broken Binding. Those I think might be the most expensive. I haven't tallied it up as far as shipping goes and transferred it from pounds into US dollar, but they're pricey. But I do like their selections, and I find it interesting that they're doing series. I don't love the way that you can only skip 1 or 2 series a year, but for the most part, I think that they have solid editions, and I think that quality is only going to improve, so I would be interested in it. But I hope this video was helpful for you guys. My camera's actually overheating, so we're gonna make this really quick. If you enjoyed this video, let me know how it helped you down in the comments. Super interested to find that out. You can connect with me on Instagram, Twitter, and Goodreads, and my Patreon, all linked down in the description below. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a good thumbs up and subscribe if you wanna, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!